Greetings, fellow Rotarians and guests. My name is Joe Young, and it's my honor to serve as the 2020-2021 President of the Rotary Club of Columbus. Founded in 1915 with our first meeting in February of 1916, our club is one of the oldest and largest within Rotary International. Our membership includes a diverse set of leaders within business, city government, military affairs, healthcare, education, arts and culture, social services, and ministry, all sharing a common desire to improve our community and have a positive impact on the world around us. On behalf of my wife Vicki and our daughters Katie and Lynn, I want to thank you for all that you are doing to make our community a better place to live. It's my pleasure to serve alongside you. Now let's get to work. Welcome to the June 16th meeting of the Rotary Club of Columbus. It is fantastic to see a full room of smiling faces. It's great to hear the fellowship going on. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's now my pleasure to call on Wayne Anthony to come up and deliver today's invocation in accordance to his faith tradition.
Let us pray. Oh God, thank you for all the good that you do through and with the lives of every person involved in Rotary and here this day. Be it work for good through us, be it work good for us, be it work for good for those that we love and care about, for those with whom we work and with whom we play. Pour out your blessing on this special club and the people that are here and the leadership to which you have called. May we do what you wish in our time, in our spot, in our place. In your name we pray. Amen. Do remember the cans and all the good that you can do.
Thank you, Wayne. I want to call up David Ranieri to introduce today's visitors and guests.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. It's a great day to be a Mercer Bear, and as a double bear, class of 1985 and 88, and maybe a triple bear because my son just graduated in May, so I think that counts. I have the pleasure of introducing our guests. And one of them, Betsy Covington, brought Dr. Peter Huey. He is a biochemistry professor at Mercer and is making his way over here to the new medical school that's going up very quickly. And we welcome Dr. Huey. Thank you. There you go. Trip Wade brought Billy Kaminsky. Billy, there you are. Welcome, Billy. Thank you. And Landy Thompson brought his son, Landon Thompson. Landy, there you are, right over here. Thank you all and welcome, and we hope everyone gives you all a very warm Rotarian welcome. Thank you.
Great to have you guys with us today. It's a long-standing tradition of our club to recognize an active duty soldier from Fort Benning at each of our weekly meetings, and we're glad to have a guest with us today. I'm going to call on Tom Waynick to introduce today's guest.
So it's my great honor today to introduce you to Sergeant Alicia Gough. She is a 31 Bravo military police and serves as an instructor and shooter at the United States Army Marksman Unit at Fort Benning, Georgia. She was born in Waukegan, Illinois, and she was raised in Burlington, Wisconsin, and completed a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and sociology from Midland University. She joined the Army in September of 2018, where she attended one station unit training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And Sergeant Gough and her husband, Ryan, reside in Pine Mountain, Georgia. They met during school, and they are both marksmen. And she was giving me some shotgun lessons here before we got up here. But welcome today, and thanks for joining us. I want to give you this passport to the arts, 2 tickets to the River Center, the Columbus Symphony Orchestra, Columbus State University Theater Department, and the Springer, and of course, a Rotary coin. Thank you.
I just want to say really quickly, thank you so much for having me here today. It's really an honor to get to sit here and be with all of you, just like-minded people who just want to improve everything about the circumstance around you. So thank you.
Sergeant Gough, on behalf of the club, I also want to extend our welcome to you. You honor us with your presence. We hope that you will extend our gratitude for your service and sacrifice to the other men and women that serve alongside you there at Fort Benning. Please come back and be our guest at any time. It's now my pleasure to call on President-elect Lori Alton that's going to come up with some great news surrounding our district grant.
Thank you, President Joe. I'm super excited, fellow Rotarians, to share some good news. We found out recently that we have been awarded our competitive grant for $10,000. It's our second year in a row that we've gotten a competitive grant. And this year, it's a little bit different project. We identified the problem, the most urgent problem, as violence in our community. And so after working with Cedric Hill and Reggie Lewis and some others in the community, we identified a unique project called Midnight Basketball. And some of you may remember years ago, and so we're going to bring that back, and it's going to engage those young people who are most vulnerable in our community and who are maybe most susceptible. And so the fun thing about it is bring them together to play basketball on Saturday night between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. I guess those are the bewitching hours, right, President Joe? And where they are most susceptible to maybe getting into trouble. And so we're excited about that. As you can imagine, it will involve some volunteers from the club with any grant. So we'll be reaching out to you. No, wait, I see some faces out there who are going, wait a minute, I can't play basketball between midnight and 3 a.m. Well, don't worry, we'll have some opportunities for you to participate that will be outside of those hours. So just be kind of looking for that. We are very excited and feel like this project is just one piece and a way that Rotary can participate in curing violence in our community. So thank you. More to come.
Thank you. Very good. That is really exciting news to have, back-to-back competitive grants awarded to our club. Up until last year, the board was in conversation about it. We're not sure that we've ever received a competitive grant. So now to get it in back-to-back years, it's fantastic for our community, for the impact that we're going to be able to make, and certainly look forward to Midnight Basketball and appreciate everybody that's been working on that. Friday the 25th of June, we've talked about this before. Those of you that are wishing to go to our day at Fort Benning, if you have not yet RSVP'd for that, please do so before you leave the room. We've got to have final head count by this coming Friday. I think right now we've got just over 40 people signed up for that. To remind you what we're going to be doing, we're going to be meeting here at the Trade Center that Friday morning. We're going to board buses at 9:15. There's a chamber breakfast that's also related to the state of Fort Benning. That's that morning here at the Trade Center. For those of you that are going to the breakfast and also want to join us, it'll be very convenient for you. Park in the garage, just plan to leave your car there all day after the breakfast, walk out, get on the buses, and then we'll go down to Post. The first thing we'll do is at Victory Pond, we'll see a Rangers in Action exhibition, which is a really, really cool event. Those of you that have never done that, the day will be worth it just as a result of that. But then we'll get to see Ranger graduation, and then we'll have lunch there at Victory Pond where we'll hear from several competitors from the most recent Best Ranger competition. Then those of you that are needing to leave, that only want to do half a day, at that point, there will be a bus that will come back to the Trade Center, take you back to your car that'll be parked here. The rest of us will continue today. We'll move on to a tank training support facility, and then after that we'll go have a dessert social at Riverside, which is the personal residence of the commanding general and his family. So I hope that everybody will have an opportunity to participate in the day, but please do let us know so that we can get an accurate head count. I appreciate that. There will not be a regular Wednesday program on June the 30th, which is the Wednesday following the Fort Benning Day. That Fort Benning Day will be our last program of this Rotary year. And then on July the 7th, the first Wednesday in July is when we'll have our change of leadership ceremony, our changing of the guard. So we'll line up all the past presidents around the front head table here and have the official changeover of me handing President-elect Lori the president's pen, and I'll gladly take my seat as a past president in front of the head table here. But I do hope that all of you will be able to join us for that meeting. We'd love to have a full room. If you are not already on the standing RSVP list for the lunch meetings and you'd like to join us for lunch, those of you that are tuning in online, we'd love to have you here. We're getting more and more newcomers, or welcome back folks coming back for the first time post-pandemic, and it's so great to reconnect with everyone. And so we look forward to reconnecting with you. It's a safe environment, and look forward to filling up the room once again. At our head table today, we've got Wayne Anthony that brought us the invocation. It's now my pleasure to call on past President Jimmy Elder to introduce today's program.
I cannot tell you how honored and excited I am to introduce this individual to you. It's something I've looked forward to for a long time, and you will absolutely love him as I do. He has become a dear friend and is a great addition to our community. Dr. Maurice Solis is a native he grew up in Gainesville, Florida, and his dad was a civil engineering professor at University of Florida, where he did his pre-med work. He did his medical school work at Wake Forest University School of Medicine, and did general surgery residency in Macon during the first years of the Mercer University School of Medicine. He did subspecialty vascular surgery fellowship in Little Rock, Arkansas, and practiced vascular surgery for 30 years. Now, this is significant. He is the dean of the associate dean who is over the Mercer University School of Medicine Columbus campus. When Mercer decided to put a dean in place here, instead of just going and finding an academic to bring in just to run a school, they went to find a practitioner who was top in his field, well-respected, revered by his peers, and to bring him to the community and to get him to run this school for us. He's not only come to be a part of this community in that way, but he also has added to the vascular surgery possibilities here in the community by practicing with a former partner of his from Macon. And it's a beautiful addition to our community. Again, Dr. Solis coming into the community is adding to what we have here, and his administration of this school is opening doors for us beyond measure. I don't want to say a whole lot more about him except that he has spoken at numerous vascular surgery gatherings, has published over 40 papers, 3 chapters in books. He is accomplished in his field, and he will help these students understand something about the possibilities and inspire them. He certainly has inspired my life. Let me introduce to you my friend, Dr. Maurice Solis.
Wow. If any of y'all know, Jimmy Elder, you won't be surprised to know that he's become a very dear friend of mine and my wife's, like in the very short time we've been here, and which means that you won't be surprised because I haven't met anybody that doesn't know Jimmy Elder. But I'm really happy to come give you basically an update of what Mercer is doing here in Columbus. I'm honored to be a part of it, and it's really, really exciting what's going on here. And I wanted to give the community an update as to what we're doing, other than just building that building over there. So if you could bring up the slides. So just to give you all a bit of a, is it really not working already? For y'all that don't know Mercer, it's the oldest private university in Georgia. and the historical campus is in Macon, Georgia. It has quite an extensive health science center offering, where they have a College of Nursing, a College of Pharmacy in Atlanta, a College of Health Professionals. We give degrees in physical therapy, family and marriage counseling, physician's assistants, and of course the School of Medicine. And the School of Medicine started in Macon in 1982. It's on the campus of the university, and the campus that was started in 1996 in Savannah, that's on the Memorial Hospital campus. And it has the mission to educate physicians to meet the healthcare needs of rural and underserved Georgians. And Mercer takes this mission very seriously. But college students going to medical school, don't necessarily want to practice medicine in rural Georgia. So how do you actually get students into medical school that will end up being doctors in rural and underserved areas? And we think we have figured out how. The first way is admission policy. We only admit Georgia students. I'm not sure there's another medical school in the country that will only admit students from its state. We also actually favor students that have rural zip codes and have ties to rural Georgia. That's been so successful that in this coming up class in August, the number of students, the percentage of students that come from Metro Atlanta is only 15%, and you can imagine how many students we have apply from Atlanta. The other is scholarship policy. We have 2 scholarships that are basically geared towards students that will contractually agree to go and serve rural Georgia. One is an accelerated track program where if you're in the top half of your class and you agree to come back after training and be a physician in an underserved area, you will finish in only 3 years in an accelerated curriculum, and we will pay for the 2nd and 3rd years. So you get out of school in 3 years to go to training with very, very little school debt, which is a big problem for medical students these days. And the other is the Nathan Deal Scholarship. We give out 6 or 7 of those a year, which is basically a full ride for students that will contract to come back and serve in underserved areas. And lastly, the Rural Clinic Program, we basically have started clinics that we staff with physicians in counties that do not have a physician. We started in Plains at the request of Jimmy Carter. You might have heard that story. We have one in Putnam County, in Eatonton. We have, most recently, we opened one in Fort Gaines, which is that picture there of the ribbon cutting for the clinic in Fort Gaines. And it won't be too long before we have one in Hamilton and Harris County. That's the next one up on the list. Well, what about Columbus? That's what we're here to talk about. As you probably know, we've had students doing their 3rd and 4th year clinical rotations at the hospitals here from the other 2 campuses, between 15 and 20. That's been going on since 2012. And just to brag on them a little bit, this is the graduating class. I was honored enough to be asked to administer the Hippocratic Oath at their graduation, and they really are quite good students. We've had students that match for their residency training programs in really competitive spots, in OB at the University of Florida, in general surgery, in pediatrics. We've had them get selected to go to Baylor, Wake Forest, and one stayed here at Piedmont to do family medicine. But this is what we're really here to talk about, the new medical school. This is, the address is actually going to be 1701 First Avenue. You all probably have seen it. If you drive on 2nd Avenue, you'll see the construction site over there. And it's really going to be one of the nicest medical schools in Georgia. It's going to be 80,000 square feet. It's costing over $38 million. We've used local architects. And I will say, I was bragging on them early today when we did a tour of it. The brickwork that they've designed on that building really matches up with the Columbus architecture. The stonework is really spectacular. And I really think it's going to be a very, very beautiful building. Local contractors, they've got about 150 workers on the project. I live nearby, so actually I walked over there the other day and took that picture. It's on schedule to be completed in November, and it's really going to be one of the nicest medical schools. The way that Mercer works, you apply to the medical school, and if you get in, then you get to choose which campus you want to go to. And I don't think it's going to be too long before the medical students are all going to be picking Columbus. When they see that building and they walk down Broadway and see all the stuff going on over there, I think they're going to really want to come here. I think it's going to be the most popular one. Well, what about student enrollment? We're going to start with 30 students that start this August. So you might, if you do the math, figure out, well, how are we going to do that if the school's not open if the building's not open until November? And we basically have a temporary space. It's on the corner of 5th Avenue and 11th Street. We're able to use that, I think it was Synovus or TSYS is letting us use that building. And it doesn't look like much on the outside, but they really have done a very nice job on the inside. On the left is the tutorial rooms. Basically, students get taught these days in small groups of 6 or 7 with one professor. And the distance learning auditoriums are also quite nice. The way that we teach students how to do history and physical examinations, next slide, is in clinical skills exam rooms, basically that look like an exam room that you'd see a patient in, but the actual patients are actors that are given a role with a specific complaint, specific physical findings, and that's how students are taught how to take a history that's basically a disease-oriented sort of questioning and do a physical exam for different parts of the body. And we have 6 of those in the temporary space. We teach them how to do that, then they have to take a test. They have to go and do them by themselves and take a test while we watch by video. And we've got all that set up in the temporary building. It's really quite nice. The student enrollment will then increase by 10 every year, so it'll be 40 next year, then 50, then 60, and that's going to be the full enrollment of 60 students a year. That's the same as the other campuses. So a few years after that, you can see in 2027, the full enrollment will be 240 medical students here in Columbus, being taught at that building and at the hospitals in town. And if you think of economic impact, it's not just them, but these days medical students do have spouses, families, and partners, and you can imagine the 240 students plus their partners and spouses. They're generally well educated and they're in the workforce because their spouses are in school. So that's also an addition. What about faculty? Well, we have one of them here today, Dr. Huey. We've hired 7 so far that are going to be our primary medical educational faculty. They all have PhDs or MD PhDs. Most of them have already moved to Columbus, and the others will next month. We've hired 1 physician so far that's going to be the physician that runs our clinical skills, teaching the students how to do history and physicals, part of the curriculum, Jessica Aguilar. She's a pediatrician out at Martin Army and who is leaving the military, and we are extremely fortunate to get her. She's going to be a fantastic addition. She has a passion for teaching and a passion for pediatrics. She's going to be doing her clinical work at Rivertown Pediatrics, and she's going to be a great teacher for us and for the students in Columbus. But really, in terms of economic impact, this is a spreadsheet that you can't read, but it's all of the faculty and staff that we have budgeted to hire for the medical school. And the ones in yellow are the only ones that we've hired. So we've got basically on the budget to hire 70 to 80 staff for that medical school over the next 5 years. The payroll is going to be $7 to $8 million. The operating budget is going to be around 20. Now, when you look up an economic impact to a community of a medical school, you can find almost any number, and it's not science, I don't think, but a lowball estimate is 2 or 3 times operating budget. So, 40 to 50, $60 million is the community impact. And maybe it's already been having an impact. Next slide. No, one before. So on the left, the arrow is pointing to the city mills that they're redoing into a boutique hotel. That's literally next door to the medical school construction site. And then on the right, the black arrow is those apartments that sure look like student housing to me, 3 blocks away from that construction site. So it might very well already be having an impact in terms of economic activity, even though I was not associated with those constructions. But I'll take credit if nobody disagrees. But almost more important than the sort of dollar amounts associated with the medical school in Columbus, what's been on my mind is how can a medical school be a transformative force in a community, focusing on the 3 sort of interests that a medical school has: healthcare, education, and research. And I do think that a medical school can really be a transformative force. So in healthcare, what can we do? Well, one obvious one is physician recruitment. If we partner with the hospitals, we provide a faculty position, teaching faculty compensation. They basically provide clinical compensation. It may very well be that we can attract physicians to come to Columbus that are world-class educators and clinicians that normally might not end up in Columbus, might end up in some bigger city. I'm working with both hospitals on plans like that. Graduate medical education, that is residency, training programs, they always improve the healthcare in the community. Columbus has a family practice residency that's been here a very long time, and Houston Clinic has an orthopedic residency. But to be honest, a city this big should have general surgery, OB, probably pediatric residencies as part of the medical education and healthcare of the community. And again, I'm working with both hospitals to see how Mercer can leverage its academics partnership with these institutions to make that happen. We're already helping St. Francis develop an internal medicine residency program. They've already submitted and are going to have a site visit next month. In terms of actually providing health care, we're in talks with Mercy Med to help staff a clinic that's going to be at the Chase Homes housing project that's going to be rebuilt close to the school. So we're going to have a clinic at that housing project that we're going to staff with faculty and students. And with First Baptist, we're actually trying to figure out how we can start a free clinic out at the Valley Mission with faculty and students, and I'm sure both of those things are going to happen. And then again, I already mentioned the rural clinic program that we've got going on. So that's how we can help with healthcare. In education, I've been finding ways of partnering with CSU. Obviously, that's this city's university, and I want CSU to be Mercer Medical School's university, and I want Mercer University's medical school to be CSU's med school. So how do we do that? Well, we're basically working on an affiliation to where we have a guaranteed admission programs with the CSU pre-med program where they get so many slots, and if the student keeps up the grades that are required and does appropriately on the tests, they have an automatic slot into the medical school. So it's basically a pipeline for local CSU students to go to medical school, as well as a pipeline for us to get good students. On top of that, we are trying to find ways of interacting our faculty and our students, both with research and even something as straightforward as having our students that don't have a university here be able to do intramural sports with the CSU folks, things like that. In terms of Columbus Tech, the other school in town, I just met actually the president the other day, and we'll be meeting because maybe there's opportunities for us to help them build new tech programs like medical simulation technology or animal care and research lab assistants to help with the research that we're going to be doing at the school. Which leads me to the last and maybe most exciting part of this thing in terms of how to be a transformational part of Columbus. That's the research that's going to be going on at the medical school. What's circled, that's the floor plan of the second floor of the building, of the medical school building, and what's circled there are all of the research and animal labs, it's almost a quarter of the entire building because it's half of the top floor. We've got $350 million invested in state-of-the-art research equipment. I'm talking about microscopes, PCR genetic machines, tissue culture equipment, and we've got budgeted 8 to 10 primary biomedical researchers. They're going to be doing almost strictly bench research. They'll have a little teaching responsibility, but they will be basically researchers first, and that's quite exciting. So what I've been doing is finding who in Columbus is doing clinical research, that is, research with patients, trying new medications, writing papers on different treatments. And there's basically three. There's the Amos Cancer Center, which does a lot of cancer research and are known for that. The Houston Clinic does orthopedic musculoskeletal research clinically. And then there's IACT, and I don't know if you all know IACT, but it's a large private clinical trials company that runs 200-300 clinical trials at a time around the Southeast, that's headquartered here in Columbus, for big pharma companies. So it's a big resource for a lot of clinical trials. And in my mind, I've been working to get the clinicians that are doing the clinical research to be part of deciding what research we do at the medical school, who the researchers are, what the themes of the research are, because if we get them together and they're working on projects together, I think there's a significant chance of having translational opportunities to what's going on in the lab will translate to something, to a trial that's in the clinic that who knows will transfer into a biotech industry incubator here in Columbus. If that's a bit visionary, it's really not at all sort of crazy. There's already in Savannah been one spin-off from one of our researchers there that developed a technique for sort of developing chromosomes that can then be injected and will actually produce proteins that attack tumor cells. And he's got venture capital and so actually a business now in Savannah. So the idea of actually having the research part of the medical school also be a big part of Columbus's future, I think is quite exciting. So thank you for your attention. I just wanted to give you all a bit update as to what we're doing in Columbus, and I will certainly be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Questions from the room? Bob?
You indicated that you only just joined the level. How about taking pre-med students at CSU without state?
Right, we'll have to work that out, but it might be actually not allowed. They have to have some, they don't have to actually live here. If they grew up here and their parents are here, but, they're going to college somewhere else. But we really are quite strict. You have to have some serious connection to Georgia, even though maybe you don't actually live here right now. So that might be something that keeps some of the students out of that program.
Betsy?
I think we're all so excited that you guys are coming. What can those of us who aren't in the medical field do to help make Mercer successful in Columbus?
Repeat the question.
So the question is, what can the folks out in the community that are not in medicine do to help this project go forward, if I paraphrase it? Well, I would say probably the most important thing I would say is when you meet hospital administrators, when you meet the physicians in town, just tell them how supportive you are, because it has to be a partnership between us and them. And particularly hospitals, I've worked in hospitals my whole life, and I have very good rapport and know how to speak with CEOs from hospitals because I've done it my whole life. But hospitals these days, have other priorities. They're not locally owned anymore, right? They're part of large health systems, and sometimes getting them interested and look away from their, bottom line financial sheets and actually have some conversations about visions for the future and how to partnership with other institutions that don't make them some sort of money right away can be a little tough. So I would say the way to be supportive is when you meet folks like that, tell them how excited you are and how you want the residency programs, and you want world-class physicians to come and teach and take care of patients.
Other questions? I'm looking online as well to see if we've got others coming in. Helen, go ahead.
Can we understand this? Are all your students or graduates be going into rural communities, or just
No, just the ones. I mean, we try to admit students that we think will want to go there, and then our scholarship program basically is contractual agreements between the student and the school. So those students that we actually go through the accelerated track program or have Nathan deals, they actually contractually agree to go to a rural underserved area, or they have to actually pay all the money back and that kind of thing. But you don't, to go to Mercer Medical School, you do not have to, sign a contract that says, I will, no matter what happens, go to a rural area, right? So so the question, and the difficulty is, well, students, if they know that's what your school's all about, they will say they go into rural areas, and maybe they do when they get to medical school, but then they decide they want to be a pediatric neurosurgeon, and that's not going to work in a small town. And so you can't really make them come into school with some sort of contract like that, which is why I think really the way that we're doing it with an admissions policy and a scholarship policy that's driven towards serving the underserved and rural areas, I suspect that in 5 or 10 years, we will see that a lot of rural areas in Georgia literally have Mercer graduate doctors. I mean, I think that's going to be very successful, but of course there's a lag time between starting something like that and having doctors not just go through medical school, but then go on through training before they come back. But I suspect in 5 or 10 years, we will see a significant number of Mercer grads in the underserved and rural communities. Yes.
Again, welcome to Columbus. We're just thrilled that y'all are here.
Thanks.
My question is, what qualifies under Mercer guidelines as rural and or underserved? In other words, is Columbus an underserved community because we do not have X number of doctors per capita?
So that's all done. In fact, that's a difficult question, because every year they basically get statistics from the state, and they basically sort of have a list of counties and cities that actually count for that. And so it is sort of an evolving sort of equation as to which areas count and which areas don't. It's fairly broad, but I don't know. Do you know whether Columbus is considered underserved? Part of it is. Well, so
Underserved but not rural.
Underserved but not rural. So
There's different, in the admissions policy, there's different tiers of urban. And so Atlanta's in a different category than Muskogee County would be.
well, what Dr. Hughes said was that there's different categories for underserved and rurality, and basically sort of even, I think there's even areas of Atlanta that might count as underserved.
a component of you getting people into underserved areas and rural areas particularly, and it goes back to what is probably more of a state responsibility than maybe the Department of Community Affairs or whatever it might be. Getting people to go there and having a support system in that community for those people are two different things on a lot of cases. You can go, and the same applies to getting teachers to go into rural areas and teach. There's no support system in there as far as housing and other things they might need. You can go into a rural area in South Georgia, for example, and there's almost no opportunity to find proper housing for a group of people. And the same thing might apply. So my question would be, actually, it may not be directed so much to you as to you or the partnership with the state. It would be, how do we alleviate that problem in small communities? Because that is an issue. If you wanted, for instance, you got a school system, then you have teachers
So to repeat the question, basically, rural areas are underserved not just in medicine, but in housing and other support systems, and how do we get physicians to go to these areas when they might not even be able to find a decent housing? You're right. That's something that I don't think that, I don't know what kind of impact Mercer could have on that, but I will say that our rural clinic program doesn't address that specifically, but the way that we envision this program, and the president has committed to having at least 30 rural clinics around South and West Georgia, is that we provide the physician with a salary, a staff, do all the overhead, take care of everything. All they have to do is go to work, and they don't have to worry about running a business. They don't have to worry about payroll. They don't have to worry about, coding and billing and any of that stuff. Yeah, it's a serious matter, the lack of housing and other support that are in rural communities, and I think in partnership with the state, we can maybe help address that.
My question is similar to Bob's. We've been hearing for years about the closures of rural hospitals in South Georgia, especially in Southwest Georgia, and I'm wondering if the influx of your physicians into these rural communities will encourage growth of hospitals in rural areas, or whether it will be more difficult for them to have the resources they need medically to serve the communities there.
To be honest, I do not think rural hospitals are going to come back. If you look at the consolidation of the hospital system in the United States, small hospitals just don't seem to be able to sort of make it financially, and I really do not see them coming back. What we want to do, and what we did in Fort Gaines, in Clay County, actually, they closed their hospital and they lost their physician. We actually helped, with the help of the community, part of that hospital was redone as the clinic. And so, although I don't think that the hospitals can come back, that doesn't mean that we can't help provide medical care to that community in a clinic setting, an outpatient setting, and then have associations with those clinics, with the hospitals that have sort of survived all the consolidation in the nearby towns. But to be honest, I don't think, unless something completely changes with the financing of medical care in the United States, I don't see rural hospitals just being viable.
Last question. I was just going to thank you because my parents go to the clinic in Fort Gaines.
Really? That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, you're welcome. I will forward that. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Solis, thank you so much for being here in the community, for bringing your expertise, your vision. I was thinking, through your presentation, looking at our Rotary thing, Rotary opens opportunities. I don't think you mentioned a single group in which that you desire to partner that doesn't have a connection to this club. And so we want to make sure that we get you those introductions, that we make it happen as a community, because, it's certainly going to be tremendously successful if all the parts come together as you've laid out, and so we appreciate that so much. It's our custom as a club to honor our speakers by donating a children's book to the Columbus Public Library in their honor, and so we're happy to do that in your name. So you have to swing by there and see it sometime. Have it there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Want to remind everybody, Jim's in the back, waving at me. Please, before you leave, all of you look lovely today. Your hair looks perfect. Please go get your pictures made so that we have updated pictures for our directories. We thank Jim Cawthorn so much for doing that for us as a club. We lean on his, and he'll be here next week also. But there's a chair in the back corner. Please go line up and
and have that done before you leave. We're planning to do it next week. So next Wednesday will be our last Wednesday meeting of the Rotary year, and we're pleased to have Ben McMinn from Startup Columbus is going to be leading the presentation for us. He's going to be talking about fostering a culture of entrepreneurship here in the community, which aligns well with the biotech initiative, possibly incubator. So really, really exciting things going on in the community. So go forth, go serve others above yourselves, and let's get to work.